Hey everybody, this is Hey Rob, and today is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to you and yours. This is today's update on Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. She's an 84-year-old woman. If you aren't aware, her last known position was at the Catalina foothills in Tucson, Arizona, just north of Tucson, Arizona. She went missing early morning hours on February 1st from her home. It took until about noon when people that expected her to go to be at a church event to realize she didn't attend. So they contacted the family and law enforcement about noon. They found blood on her front porch, and they determined that the DNA from the blood matched Nancy's. So they immediately treated the property as a crime scene. It's been 2 weeks today, and they have been working diligently, on their investigation. This includes multiple law agencies. Last I recall, the Pima County Sheriff's Department has taken the lead with FBI support. More recently, we have SWAT involvement, as well as other law enforcement agencies that have joined in. Again, it's been 2 weeks today, so there's concern. So as of today, the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie remains an active and intensifying investigation. Authorities continue to treat this as a suspected abduction after she vanished from her Tucson-area home in late January, meaning January 31st, early hours of February 1st. In the latest developments, law enforcement activity significantly increased this week. The FBI, along with the Pima County Sheriff's Office, executed a major operation at a home located roughly 2 miles from Nancy's residence. That was about 1.9 miles. It was late yesterday. Two SWAT tactical vehicles went to the location after receiving a tip. And remember, they've received more than 30,000 tips via the phone line and or through the website that's provided. I will provide with you both. It's already in the comments. The road was blocked off by the Pima County Sheriff's Department truck on both ends. The SWAT team requested the individuals from the house to exit the home. They did peacefully. At the beginning, it was a man and a woman, and later it was two men and one of the men's mother. They were most likely brought into the SWAT vehicle to be questioned. One of the SWAT vehicles left the scene, and then multiple law enforcement vehicles drove through, allowed to drive through, throwing their badges and such. Never saw them leave through this side of the roadway that JLR Investigations is covering. And keep that in mind that he's live streaming from the site, and I'll put him up momentarily. But I wanted to let you know that Jonathan Lee Ritchie's Investigates is the channel. I have the link also in the comments, which I'll keep repeating throughout, as well as the FBI's phone number and tip line. So multiple individuals were temporarily detained, and a vehicle was seized and towed for forensic processing. That was a Range Rover that last night they taped up for evidence purposes, so there's no one to go into it. And according to the notes, that it was brought to probably a law enforcement secure area so they can investigate it and do forensic processing. As of now, however, no arrests have been announced and no charges have been filed. Investigators are continuing to analyze physical evidence collected during the search. Remember, they did several searches, canvases in the area, requesting recently, the last 2 weeks approximately, from local neighborhoods, footage from their home cameras. And all of that was requested to be provided to law enforcement. And as you can imagine, it's quite a bit of work behind the scenes, to go through all of the phone calls and tips, as well as processing all of the forensics and evidence, as well as that camera footage. They did have a vehicle that was of interest. I don't think it was a Range Rover. I think the Range Rover was identified evening last. So they were using the footage to see if anything suspicious was in the area. They did canvass here and speak with neighbors, not just on the street on Campbell Road, where Nancy's home's located, but also the surrounding neighborhood area. And as you may recall, the Catalina foothills is quite full of brush, mountainous, trees, very not easy to get through, right? As well as live natural animals. Jonathan had shown us a coyote that walked across the road at one point, a family of javelinas, which are animals that live in the Arizona area. So we live with them. Remember, we entered their area. So the area was surrounding Nancy's home. They had drones above flying around during the past 2 weeks. They continued the canvassing. They questioned many people. And with that said, let's see if I have anything new on this screen. SWAT and FBI, multiple SWAT and FBI units were involved. Don't forget the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The Range Rover was seized. Three people were detained briefly in connection with the investigation, including during a traffic stop tied to the operation. No arrests have been made and no one remains in custody. The reward for any information leading to a location or an arrest has been increased to $100,000 from the FBI. And we still hold hope beyond hope, as we know other cases have lasted a lot longer than 2 weeks. And victims have been found. So that's why we're staying positive. At least I am with my fellow viewers. And I will bring up Jonathan's channel. We'll hit the live and we'll keep that streaming, and I'll monitor the comments. Any updates I'll allow. I have it here. Sorry, let me remove the poster from the FBI's poster. Take me off screen because I am not the story. And hit play. Let's see what Jonathan Lee Ritchie's has found out.
Situation about, what's going on. This particular group of individuals feels like law enforcement botched the case. Like a law enforcement botched. Hearing that a lot. Like crime scene should have been secure. Things that should have been done at the beginning of the investigation. Botched. That was the word that was presented to me. Botched. You feel like the investigation at the beginning stage, stages has been botched in any way? Botched for sure.
These are Jonathan's opinions based on what he's heard and received. So let's give him credit for his own views on what's going on. I'm sharing his live stream with which he offered out to everybody. Since he's there on site and managing the camera as well as talking to folks, sometimes he sets his camera as a stagnant view. Keep that in mind. You can see the sun is setting, so dusk is coming soon. But also the fact that I'm narrating to assist with any comments, answering questions, keeping people up to date. Because again, more eyes and ears regarding this case is going to provide more assistance to the location of Nancy, and with prayers, safe return. Let me quickly throw up here the tip line. If you have any information, please contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. As last night occurred also, many things happened later in the evening. Now it is a Saturday, about 6:30, just past 6:30 p.m. Arizona time, which is Mountain Standard Time. So keep that in mind from wherever you're at.
I'm looking on my phone to see if there's anything going on. I think it's going to be a quiet night. But let's hope we can get some action to bring this case to an end.
Also, we may have a guest appearance on the stream, Unsolved Mysteries by Amy from Boston. Amy's a very cool friend of mine. She does a lot of true crime stories and reviews, and going back in time to see what the status of things are, as well as reviewing cases that have been presented. just keeping things in light. And I compliment her very much for her coverage of various trials and criminal cases. I do want to put her link there to her YouTube channel, so you can go over there and subscribe to her channel also. It's very interesting. You can see her past streams and her up and coming live streams. So her and I spoke. I said I'd like to invite her. I gave her the invite link, so we'll see at her availability this evening. And if she joins us, great. We'll be able to talk to her. She can also give us insight from her perspective on what's going on from Boston and what she's been hearing in the local area. So I just want to give you her YouTube channel there, so you can search her up. You can search her by Unsolved Amy Boston, and you should be able to see the channel. She's a Shamrock gal. Also, I've not heard anything new about ransom notes. The ones in the past week or two that have been received have not been confirmed via source. Sorry, the source has not been confirmed, nor the ransom notes have been authenticated. We do know Harvey Levin from TMZ has received several directly to him. Reason that Harvey explained is that the person sending the ransom note, whether they're involved or not, stated they don't trust the news, so they're reaching out to him because they trust TMZ more. Doesn't mean that law enforcement won't receive more ransom notes, if at all. So, hey, IB.
All right, so do you have a clear line of sight?
Thank you, IB. I appreciate that. I said hello to Tex Packet too. Hey, thanks, Tex. Happy VD Day to you too. Everybody see your doctors come Monday. What? Teresa, hey. Snow, how you doing? Where's my Bruce? Bruce, the Moose. Hello there, Legendary. Sorry, I'm going to say Fledge. Sorry about that. Please don't be upset with me. Snow, keep up with the marathon running. No excuses. Weather's not a stopper. Remember that.
Just my hypothesis on this was, I believe that the Range Rover was possibly a vehicle that was used to remove Nancy Guthrie from the scene.
Hey, Charlie, how you doing? Charlie Tuna. I remember that. Good catch name.
We're at the beginning of the investigation, and the investigational path is going to continue to move forward. But I genuinely believe that this was a burglary that went wrong, and the intent was not for this to be a kidnapping. Most people will say, "Hey, look, burglary."
Hey, Stinky, how you doing?
And that's true.
Mimi Winch, how you doing?
Situation where the burglar panics, and that's when he removed the body because.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I hope beyond hope, and saying my prayers with so many other prayers, they will come in handy. Trust me, they're very beneficial. So whatever deity you subscribe to, please reach out to them. Preferably a safe return for Nancy, but also for her family, who are probably having a very difficult time over the last 2 weeks. Yes, the weather here in Arizona has been beautiful today. I was actually out in a t-shirt and sweats just because it was too hot to wear anything else. Beautiful blue skies in North Phoenix. You can see the sun setting in Tucson, Arizona. Sorry about the darkness on the ground. It's a lighting issue with the camera. As you know, if anybody's in photography, but you can still see the color tones in the sky. Hey, Sunflower, how you doing? Yeah, there's a lot of eyes on this around the country, so that's very important to acknowledge also. Being that we're local, like Richard, sorry, it's not even Richard, it's Jonathan. Man, am I tired. Jonathan Lee Ritchie's investigates is not from the area. He's staying in a hotel there in Tucson, so he's up early. He's been putting in over 12-hour days for the last 2 weeks just to provide coverage, live streaming coverage on his channel. And did I share that? Let me go here. Make sure that I share that also. Fire. 'Cause I don't know if I Here's Jonathan's YouTube channel. Momentarily, it'll be in the comments. Coming up. There you go. Hey Diane, how you doing? Actually, Snow, that's kind of you to ask. In the recent past this week, we had someone deliver sweets, which was sweet, but they also ordered Domino's pizza, which was actually sent to Nancy's home address, which is still a live investigation site. There was I know on Instagram, the Pima County Sheriff's Department posted to ask people not to send deliveries, especially to the home address, because it's a live crime scene and they could cause some evidence to be destroyed. So keep that in mind. So they are planning they are staying hydrated. I've seen in the past 2 weeks a lot of water people are bringing and sharing. If they're in the area and bring food over, that's great. But please do not order anything to be sent because we don't want to use Nancy's home address. And I don't think the neighbors would appreciate it if we used one of their addresses. But again, kind gestures from so many people looking out for the reporters, Jonathan, even the law enforcement in the area because they do have to have someone protecting the Nancy's home. And don't forget also Annie Guthrie and her husband, Tomasco Gioni, live about 4 miles away, as well as Savannah, the other daughter. So there's 2 daughters, a son and a son-in-law. All of them have been kept to a location, undisclosed location, 24/7, being monitored so they stay safe, just for in case any issues, right? So they're being guarded, if you will. But they're not at those home addresses. So we have seen activity at both locations, Andy Guthrie's house, about 4 miles away, and also at Nancy Guthrie's house, which is here in the Catalina foothills, just north of Tucson, Arizona. The road I believe you see here is Campbell Road, because to the right are all the vehicles that are parked, and to the left is the little flower collection folks have been dropping off flowers. Typical flowers are using the color yellow, and that's for the sign of hope, which is why we say hope beyond hope, that she's found safely. Hey, Beatrice, how you doing? Welcome. Let me I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to add some comments so you can catch up with verbiage, reading it wise, so you'll know. This is regarding Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. The early morning hours of February 1st. It occurred at her home in Catalina foothills, north of Tucson, Arizona. It was reported missing. She was reported missing midday on February 1st when her friends, I assume from church, notified the family, who notified law enforcement around noon after she didn't attend a church function. And we are now, even though it's alleged, we're referring to the abductor and or abductors, or kidnappers, right? Suspects, that kind of thing. Also, I shared about the ransom notes. We have no idea who the sources are, if not one or more, as well as they have not been authenticated. But there has been discussion in those notes about providing Bitcoins, and additional information regarding Nancy would be provided. We do not know what the family's been doing behind closed doors. We do not know what law enforcement's been doing since last night. There was supposed to be a public statement that was being prepared, as well as a media stage being set up in that area, where about 1.9 miles away, where the SWAT vehicles and multiple law enforcements went to. And even though the 3 folks that they found, 2 men and 1 man's mom, were detained and questioned, they were released. It was determined they were not part of this Nancy Guthrie's
some of that sandwich, and then I was looking at the sunset. Probably gonna wrap it down. Looks like everything is like coming to an end around here. See the scene out here. Amazing sky, for sure. I was gonna get in my car and go to Annie and Tommaso's, but I think I'll leave it at that. And then again, I'm gonna go get a little rest, and then if anything pops off, definitely tag me up on X at JLR Investigates and reach out to me, and we'll be fresh tomorrow. I'll be out here first light for sure. We'll use this as a staging ground. Of course, if anything else pops off, we'll share. But it's just not. There's nothing going on. So I don't think they're gonna do an any raid out here tonight or whatever like that. You got the sheriff here perched out as usual. Another day though, and it sucks. It sucks because spoken to so many people, and they generally want this case solved. They generally, there is a lot of mixed opinions about Nancy. Some feel like she's alive. Some feel like she isn't. You never want to, give up hope. Somebody did something here, and this is insane. I mean, we're all hooked. We all want to know. We will continue to follow. We will continue to wherever they take us, we go. So on this channel, we'll go to the locations, whatever pops up next or whatever. If they reveal another location or whatever, we'll go check it out in real time, boots on the ground. All right, with that being said, appreciate everyone's support. We are Nancy's Army out front of her home. Power prayer. And also pray for all the law enforcement, including the Pima County Sheriff, Nanos, all his deputies. I could say that his deputies have acted professional out here, kind and courteous deputies. They're all of them been super chill out here. They don't bother anyone.
Updated news,
If
Sabrina.
anyone has a question for the deputies, they come out. They're courteous. If they're standing at the road, they say hello. They're not on any power trip or anything. Praying for the FBI, law enforcement, HSI, partnering the agencies, everyone. Hopefully everyone can work together. The power of working together. Power working together can make a huge difference. Hopefully there's no egos and people on both sides withholding information. You want to just work together to get this solved. The whole world is watching. The whole world is watching this case. And it will get solved. Whoever did this will be caught. I don't want to think months and years, like the sheriff said. I think there'll be a big break soon. Somebody will slip. Somebody knows who the perp is. Somebody will share. The rewards, $100K, it's $100,000, $100,000. It's a lot of money. You can pay your groceries for a year. It could put your kids in college and school. You could do a lot with $100,000. Turn the person in. $100K. Maybe it goes up, the reward. Do it now. Get $100,000. You'll be like the hero out there for turning her in, or turning the person that did this to her in, or finding her, any information on her. That's safe return of her too. JLR Investigates. All right, we cover breaking news, true crime, 24/7. Whoa! Just stepped in front of the media guy. Get out of the way. That's what he said. He said, get out of the way. We cover true crime, boots on the ground, 24/7, 365. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you, everyone that contributed. If I did not acknowledge you, I truly apologize, and I'm truly grateful for your contribution. This is kind of like the go-to channel when it comes to this case, because we're here and we're following what's going on as it develops and everything like that. So very grateful for and appreciate every one of you out there. God bless. Praying for Nancy, praying for Nancy's family, praying for the entire Tucson community. All right, JLR Investigates. We'll talk soon. You all have a good evening. Saturday night. Be back tomorrow. For sure, if anything else breaks, I'll be back. We'll talk soon.
Ziggy, turn off Mr. Purple. Sorry, sorry. It's on a different screen, so let me copy it over here, and then I'll share that, and we'll hear Chris's from Law and Crime on the case. Let's get that up for you so you can see what any information shared there. Okay. Here we go.
14 days later, and we still don't know where Nancy Guthrie is or who took her in the middle of the night from her home back on February 1st. Now, there was a lot of activity that we need to talk about that happened last night, specifically at a home 2 miles roughly from Nancy Guthrie's house. Also, there was a dramatic traffic stop that was allegedly related to the search for Nancy Guthrie. And these are pictures of investigators, FBI, and sheriff's deputies going through a vehicle that they pulled over in a traffic stop. The car was pulled over at a Culver's fast food restaurant. It's unclear why that vehicle was targeted. Now, the other activity with law enforcement happened at a home. The New York Times says the home, again, about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house, it's in what's considered an upscale neighborhood, according to the New York Times. A woman lives there with her adult son. And this is according to a neighbor who spoke to the outlet. Now, the woman reportedly declined to comment to the media outlet. The Pima County Sheriff says that the reason that the SWAT team went to that home was because of a tip they received, and it was a federal court-ordered search warrant that was executed at that house. According to the sheriff, one man was detained and questioned, then released. No one was arrested. Now, it is unclear what the FBI took from the home, and it is possible that they are still following leads based on what took place and what they found inside the house. It's important to remember that with a search warrant, you have to provide evidence to a judge who looks and says, okay, this is something where I believe you can go into someone's house and take property out of it. So you look at that and you have to believe that law enforcement had at least something that pointed them in the direction of this house. But remember, earlier in the week, they did a raid at a home near the U.S.-Mexico border, about an hour from Tucson. You remember that man, Carlos, a DoorDash delivery driver. He's pulled over, he's detained, and he's questioned, but then he's released by law enforcement. And according to the sheriff of Pima County, Carlos's alibi seems to check out. So it doesn't seem like he was involved in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Now, Friday night's raid happened hours after a major piece of information was confirmed by the Pima County Sheriff that DNA, other than Nancy Guthrie's, was found inside the home. Now, it's unclear if that DNA belongs to the masked man seen outside of her home around the time that she was kidnapped. And it's important to remember that it very well could just be the DNA of someone who was inside her house, maybe a friend, maybe someone who worked at the home to help her. We know that hired help like gardeners have been asked to provide DNA samples. Now, speaking of Nancy Guthrie's house, we have to talk about a very bizarre scene that played out yesterday at her home. This is on Friday, and this is a picture of a pool cleaning company that came to Nancy Guthrie's house and cleaned the pool in her backyard. Now, this raised some questions, raised some eyebrows, considering Nancy Guthrie's house is a crime scene. The Pima County Sheriff said that the Guthrie family requested someone come and service the pool. Now, in an interview with Fox News, the sheriff addressed reports that a member of the Guthrie family may be a suspect in the case. We have heard that from the early days of this investigation. And the sheriff appeared to brush that off to an extent, saying that the Guthrie family has been 100% cooperative. They've done everything that law enforcement has asked them. But then when he was asked if any members of the Guthrie family have been ruled out as a suspect in the case, he said, no one has been ruled out. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has also put out statements saying that they don't have suspects or persons of interest in this case. Now, this does appear to be a major lead in the case. I want to show you this here. This, according to the FBI, is the type of backpack that the person spotted outside of Nancy's home, tampering with her front door camera, was wearing in those images. Now, the backpack, it is a 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack. And very interesting, the only place that you can get it is Walmart. That's it. Now, it's not some small sporting goods store, but it is something. And you have to believe that law enforcement is talking to Walmart and getting records and going through who bought that backpack, maybe in recent weeks or recent months, if there's anything there that could help lead them to that person we see in the images released by the FBI. Now, it could be huge in finding that person we see on the surveillance video on the front porch. And when you look at that video of the person in the mask and you see that backpack, you notice that the backpack is full. It's unclear what they have inside of it. Now, along with the images of the backpack, the FBI also put out a description of this person. They say the suspect is a male, standing around 5'9" or 5'10" with an average build. May not sound like a lot, but when you think of that height, you can rule out a lot of people. Now, the FBI also doubled the amount of money it's offering as a reward for information that would help find Nancy Guthrie and the person or people who took her. So that reward from the FBI is now at $100,000. Law enforcement confirmed to media that a pair of gloves was also found during an extensive search of Nancy's neighborhood. It's unclear if they are connected to Nancy's case. The Pima County Sheriff told KVOA TV that, quote, quite a number of gloves have been found in their search efforts, and some of them are as far away as 10 minutes to the east and 10 minutes to the west. It is unclear if any of those things could help find Nancy Guthrie. Now, the Pima County Sheriff, in his interview with Fox News, also said that they did not find a glove inside Nancy Guthrie's house or on her property specifically. It's unclear what other pieces of video law enforcement have in this case. You know, if it's more than just what we've seen, that we know the FBI had to go and dig very deep, they say, into the servers for the Nest camera to pull out images that they didn't think existed until just a couple of days ago, showing that man on the front steps. Again, it's unclear what other pieces of information they have, the video that they potentially could release to the public, but we do know that they are asking the public for more video, specifically people with home surveillance cameras, just like Nancy Guthrie apparently had. Thursday afternoon, the sheriff put this call out saying that they want video from January 1st to February 2nd, 2026 of a 2-mile radius of this part of town. This is near East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue, and they want anything that shows vehicles, traffic, pedestrians, or suspicious activity. Now, Nancy's home is about a 4-minute drive south of that intersection, and law enforcement say they are reaching out to people on the Neighbors app. So anybody watching, if you get a request from law enforcement for video, if you're joining us from Pima County, Arizona, the official request will have like a blue check mark on it. Now, law enforcement also put a link out on X for people to submit videos as evidence. Previously, law enforcement did say they were looking for video at specific times that I want to talk about again, because KVOA TV said that people in the Catalina Foothills area of Tucson, that's where Nancy lives, were asked for surveillance camera footage for very specific times, like January 11th, between 9 p.m. and midnight. That's roughly 22 days before Nancy was taken. Then they also want footage from the morning of January 31st. That's the day before Nancy was taken, between 9:30 in the morning and 11 a.m. And KVOA says that's because there is a suspicious vehicle on a street at around 10 o'clock in the morning nearby. So with that said, I want to show you the missing persons poster that's now out by the FBI. And again, the reward at $100,000 for information to find her or the people who may have taken her. And if you have any information on Nancy Guthrie, contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department, 520-351-4900 for the FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI, or tips.fbi.gov. Joining us now to talk about the latest on this case is retired NYPD Detective Tom Smith, co-host of the Gold Shield Show. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Last night, we're following along once again as a SWAT team moves in. You have two different locations. You have this traffic stop, and then you have a raid of a house. And from the outside, it feels like, okay, here we go. This is, it's heading in the right direction. And now we're finding out that both people who are detained have been released. What do you make of that development?
Well, let's back up a little bit with what happened before that. They had to have enough evidence to go in front of a judge and get a warrant. So in order to get the warrant, you got to show the probable cause of that warrant, not just where you want it, but you have to get into specifics about what you're looking for and where in that house you're going to search. You can't just blankly get I want a search warrant for this house. So they would have had to have laid this case out to a judge about what they have. And none of this, obviously, we know, in the public. So the judge was convinced that they had enough to issue this warrant. And then they went and tactically took it down and took the warrant into play and came up with what it was. So where we're at now is, again, every time in this case, Chris, we go kind of 3 or 4 steps forward, we go back 5. And that's just the way the pace of this case has been going. But it's not unusual. Complex cases like this is what happens.
Yeah, and we were talking to a retired homicide detective from Pima County yesterday, and it was about, I just asked about, because I can see frustration from the public, and I know, like, if you're an investigator, like, who cares what the public, someone on the internet and like criticism like that, but it's like they keep going back to Nancy's house or Annie's house, and it's like, well, what did you find today that you couldn't have found like yesterday? And I know that that's just kind of how this process goes forward. When someone is detained, we'll see someone get arrested and we know that then they're in custody. But then there's also times where it might be a witness or someone who may have some information, and then they're invited down to the police station, and then they can, have an interview with detectives there. How would you characterize that?
Well, it all depends on the circumstances. All right. These are very specific circumstances that have to do with the search warrant. So that was one of the points that came out last night. One of them was handcuffed. People get handcuffed for everyone's safety. That is why they're handcuffed, because the police going in, the agents going in, don't know who these people are. And if it has anything to do related to this crime, the perp who was at that front door did have a firearm on them. So you have to take that all into account. So detaining them means they can't hold them indefinitely, but at that moment, they're not free to leave until questions are answered. Now, if they want a lawyer, fine. That's their absolute right to do so. But they're conducting an investigation, and that at that time are not free to leave. Then process goes on, things get straightened out, questions get answered, and then, everyone's free to go, and we'll be in touch. I guarantee you, as I sit here, they're not alone. All right. There's a couple of cars around that area making sure they don't take off. They don't head to an airport. They don't head for a border. Something like that, because they're still on the radar, and there's still questions out there about that warrant last night.
With the detaining as well, like I know you can hold someone for like 24 hours. And in this case, I think they were held for about 12 or less. Do you read into anything that they were let go, where it wasn't like, we're going to hold you up until that exact moment, which would be probably like 3:00 tomorrow morning or something like that, like when they were brought into custody? Do you read into the fact that they were released far before, they could have been released?
No, because as a detective who did this, we took people in for questioning all the time. The people who have intimate knowledge of this case and every piece of evidence they have are going to know within a little while whether these people are involved or not, just through questioning, through interviews, through some sort of interrogation. They're going to know whether they're on the right track or not. And if you're on the right track, that time frame extends, obviously. If you know that they're not involved, then you don't really play games with it, trying to come up with different things. But they're gonna, I guarantee you they took their time, and the people who have the best knowledge of this case are the ones who are questioning them to make sure all the questions got answered and they're on the right track or they're not on the right track. And obviously there was enough last night with the interviews that were conducted to let them go at this time.
And when you look at, and I know the gentleman Carlos in Ricos, Arizona earlier, the sheriff said earlier this week that his alibi seems to check out, but it was like cell phone data that had them believing that he was someone that they just wanted to talk to. And then they did a court-ordered search of his home. And then we don't really know the details as of yet officially about what led them to this house about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. And then you have this traffic stop at a Culver's nearby. But just from what you're kind of seeing on the outside, like what seems to be the strategy of how they're identifying people who they want to talk to?
There's probably a number of ways, Chris. You have cell phone data. You have any DNA tests they're doing. We don't know the results of the plea to the public of looking at their cameras on their houses for a certain period of time. So, and just the leads that are coming in. I mean, they're up to, I think, 30,000 leads that they have gotten since the video came out. So you have to track them down. And if one comes in that's viable and you go through it and you can collaborate what they're saying on the tip, that's going to lead to maybe another step and another step. So it all has to do with what's being collected and what the investigators know right now. And again, I'm telling you right now, we know maybe 5% of what they know right now.
And that's a good point, especially because, and I can see the exhaustion in the comment section of some of our stories. And then if you search online, of people just wanting an answer to this case, but it is taking time to, definitively figure out what happened. Kind of one other kind of anecdotal part of it that stood out to me was in the detaining the other night with the gentleman near the US-Mexico border. Like he talked about whether it was the agents or deputies who were interviewing him, that they had said they think that his eyes look like the person in the surveillance picture. And then his mother-in-law said that when they came into the home with the search warrant, they showed the surveillance pictures and said, "Is this your son-in-law?" And it's like, when I heard that, like I was worried where it felt like they really thought they had the guy and they didn't, according to the sheriff. Is there any concern that might have been the path that they were taking? But then really at the end of the day, like now they're kind of, okay, this guy wasn't it. Now we have to start back at square one and figure out who else might have been in the area that night.
Oh, sure. I hope, I'm gonna take a leap in doing this for over 30 years that they didn't just go on what the eyes look like. All right. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say there was a lot more to it than just his eyes. They might have said that to him or his family, but you're not going to a judge to get a warrant and saying, well, his eyes match. So there was much more to do with that. But the thing about this, Chris, is you have, and let me just try to explain how it works. When you have this complex of a case, you have certain groups and certain teams that are tasked to do certain things. LPR readers, surveillance cameras, background checks of people in the area, criminal histories of people. You have different teams who are tasked to do stuff. So even when this happens, and a takedown of this magnitude took place last night, all those other groups are still working and they're still coming up with other things that might lead them to the conclusion of this case. So just because an operation like last night takes place, everything doesn't shut down. Everything's still going on. So as much as last night we all thought looked good, there's still leads that are being followed up.
And there's so many cases where even with, statements that are made by law enforcement to the public, like they could be working something else behind the scenes entirely. I keep thinking back to Brian Koberger and it was, hey, we don't have a suspect, and everybody's piling on law enforcement in Idaho, but they very much did. They were just kind of building their case as it goes. Clearly in that situation, though, you're dealing with what we knew at the time was a murder. In this case, it's still trying to figure out where Nancy Guthrie actually is. On some of the public statements part of it, and this is, maybe it's something that's playing out on the sideline, but it's everybody trying to read into the sheriff and what he's saying. And he was giving news conferences, but now he's not. But then he's giving some statements in interviews. And you see the public frustration from that, like really at the end of the day. And I'm all for, getting as much information as we can in the media, but how much does like the public side of it and how much they know? And I know that there's a ton of speculation and this is very unique that way. How much does that actually impact the people who are working on this case?
Well, you try not to listen to what's going on outside of those teams, because then you just get distracted and you can start going down a path that isn't a lead and doesn't mean much, but you're taking up the resources to do that. You know, do I agree with not completely freezing out everyone? No. I think there's a certain level that you need to keep everyone just informed, not specifics, not to jeopardize the integrity of the case, but just keep them informed. Because, like I've said numerous times, Chris, when you completely freeze everybody out is when conspiracy theories start and rumors start and people's imaginations just go off on a tangent. And that's what gets distracting, because then those people who are thinking just the weirdest and wildest things, they're the ones making calls into that tip line, taking time out of investigators to work real leads and leads that are viable, not just someone's imagination because they haven't heard from the sheriff or the FBI in a couple of days.
Yeah, because it's you know, and we're starting to see that. I mean, you just search online and you're like, and you're trying to follow down every lead, even on our end, trying to figure out what might actually be a legitimate thing to follow. And so much of it is just not true. And we'll see how the rest of this case plays out. I haven't had a chance to ask you just about the surveillance video that came in. And when you see this person in their mask, they have that backpack, we believe we know the brand and that it's something that was sold at Walmart. Like, what stood out to you the first time you saw that video?
The first time I saw it, and I watched it, I remember when I finally got it and watched it about 5, 6, 7 times and kept coming up with the same conclusion. He's not a master criminal. He's an amateur about what he's doing. And I still, to this day, I've said it over and over again in the beginning of this case, I don't think the target of this was a kidnapping. I think that was a secondary thought. He doesn't act like he's in any rush. It's, oh my God, I got to get in this house before the person in the house sees me. He doesn't have that kind of demeanor while he's walking around the house. And so to me, I don't even think he knew someone was home. He might have been watching the house earlier and seen Nancy leave, but then had no idea she came back. He doesn't seem like he's in a rush to do anything. If someone's in a house and they're your target to get, of a kidnapping, you're in a rush. You got to get in and out, get it, grab it in the car and away. Not just walk in and trying to cover a camera, and all that was very weird to me. And like I said, I still think the kidnapping was not the initial plan, but a secondary crime.
Yeah, because I felt like watching it, it's like, on one hand, he had no idea that the camera was there until he saw it, but it like didn't phase him, which like that was kind of chilling. Where, I mean, you often see with like people who are trying to break into homes and like some of these Ring doorbell cameras, like they book the second that they think that they're actually on camera. And like this person wasn't phased by it at all. The backpack, knowing the brand of it, knowing it was sold at Walmart, it seems like a pretty big, lead that could help them. But at the same time, it's not like a small sporting goods store, and who knows if that backpack was even purchased within the last, couple months or years. Like, how big of a deal is that to trying to piece together who that is?
Well, it becomes a big puzzle. You see the video, you identify the backpack, the stores that it's sold in. So you go to those stores, and I would go back at least a month or two to try to see if they could come up with a SKU number of that time frame, and if any were sold during that time. And then you're going to match that up with maybe any videos that are over registers, of maybe anyone being captured buying those. It takes a lot. Don't get me wrong. I just rattled that off in about 15 seconds, and it's a lot. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of meticulous work, but it is something to follow up on and a lead that can be run down. And I think that's what they're doing, because you're going to start in that area. So you're going to go to the closest Walmart, and then you're going to kind of work outward, from there. But Walmart's not the only store that sells it. It's just one of the most popular ones. So you're running into just other merchants as well that could be selling this, but you have to start somewhere. And I think that's a viable beginning.
And now that we're officially, this is day 14, so it's been 2 weeks since she was taken. And again, there's probably 95% of, there's not a lot of leaks coming out. I mean, I know that there's a lot of statements from the sheriff back and forth, but it seems like the people closest to the investigation, as far as like the FBI agents, the Guthrie family, all of that, there's not a lot of information coming out of there. One statement that got a little bit of traction yesterday was looking at the family, and they've been super cooperative, 100%. The sheriff says they've done everything. And then it was like, well, if the family's ruled out yet, and he says, well, nobody's ruled out. And then suddenly people look at that and say, well, the family's not being ruled out. Like, how do you actually rule someone out at this point?
Well, the sheriff's been saying a couple of things he probably shouldn't, elaborate on. He just contradicted himself in one statement. So
Right.
No one, listen, until someone is in handcuffs and in jail and charged, no one's off the hook. Everyone is still being looked at, either family, friends, neighbors, strangers, all of that. No one is off the table until the right person is apprehended.
And when I look at this too, because I know they've said like hundreds of agents are working on this and members of law enforcement. We saw a massive SWAT presence last night. The FBI crime lab is going through stuff. I know that there was a little bit of controversy with that private lab in Florida that has a relationship with Pima County, but there is just so many people working on this. And it's like, I sit back knowing that there's probably 95% we don't know of. And it's like, how do whoever took Nancy Guthrie, like, how are they at this point not in custody? Like, when you look at this investigation and you're kind of seeing what's playing out, like, what can be the type of break in a case like this that changes everything?
I think waiting on the DNA of something they recovered, they stated from inside the house that's not Nancy's, that right now is what you focus on. And then there might be something, tomorrow that you focus on. But I think right now, that DNA sample that got sent down to Florida is going to be big. That's going to be a big part in this. That is, if that DNA is in a data system. So a lot of it, we're all holding our breath and hoping for that one break. Criminals aren't perfect. There's no perfect crime. So you hope there was a mistake made somewhere, or someone has knowledge of this that gives these guys up. Those are the hope factors that investigators deal with when you're running down leads and you're running a case like this. But I'm telling you, Chris, I'm telling you right now, all those investigators and detectives and agents are not sleeping. They're not eating. They're not going home. They are pounding this as hard as they can because you want a conclusion to this, whatever it might be. But they're not stopping, and I know that because I've been there. I've been involved in cases like this. And it becomes personal because now it's on their watch that they have to go get this person. So we're going to hope for the best.
Yeah. And now, day 14, but it does seem like there at least you hope that there's just steps forward in this investigation that can lead to that break. That may change everything. Tom Smith, retired NYPD detective, co-host of the Gold Shield Show. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me again, Chris.
If you have any information on Nancy Guthrie, you can contact the Pima County Sheriff at 520-351-4900. You can also contact the FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI is the number, or the website tips.fbi.gov. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we are also now streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. See you next time.
So that was a report from Chris Stewart from Law and Crime. I thought it was worth sharing so we get some more insight as to a perspective from someone who's actually has ran an investigation, has in law enforcement, has been in law enforcement. Really good description of what be going on in behind the scenes. A little bit of explanation of why, as some of the comments stated, they're not releasing much information to the public. As they're working through the investigation behind closed doors, so to speak, there's a lot of work and effort being put into this, especially during this long weekend ahead that we're in the middle of, I should say. I don't believe everybody's taking time off. I believe a lot of these folks that are involved from law enforcement are still working diligently on video scrubbing to get any evidence that they can find, also answering those tips and phone call numbers, phone calls that have come in. As you can see, FBI can be contacted at 1-800-CALL-FBI, or you can submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. Also, Jonathan Lee Ritchie. I want to make sure I put his link back up. He's the one who's streaming live from near in the North Tucson area near Nancy Guthrie's house and Annie Guthrie's home. Nancy's at the Catalina foothills area just north of Tucson, and about 4 miles away is Annie Guthrie and her husband, Tomasco Gioni. They live there. And as you heard in the Chris Stewart story, we'll say they did address the SWAT team based on a tip that they were able to go to a home nearby about 1.9 miles away and questioned 3 individuals. They were detained and then released about the 12-hour mark approximately. They weren't held the entire 24. The law enforcement made their investigation and realized they were not involved. But I do agree that folks are probably still being monitored, people of interest. So, and they probably been, I would make a strong assumption they were told not to leave the area, stay nearby, that along those lines, because it's important that we don't know if they're ever going to be contacted again or something else comes out via evidence or investigation. So keep that in mind also. J-Rock asked, do you think he could be a serial killer? Do you know how many missing persons in that hiking area? I did a search yesterday and just in the Tucson area, and there were only 2. There was a young girl in 1984, if I'm not mistaken, and then a teenager in 2001. So only those 3, including Nancy, thus far. Now, in the state of Arizona, compared to the national average, we have approximately 1,100 missing persons in the area, which Arizona is a very large state. So that's a strong number. No matter what it is, anyone missing should be investigated and found. That's why we all have to work together as concerned citizens. And I've said it before, you may not have heard it if you haven't been on my stream before, but we only have so far of a circle of influence individually. But if we connect with others, that circle of influence increases. And the more people you know and talk to, you never know how you're going to find new additional information, whether it be related to Nancy or any other missing persons, especially children, young adults, and even the elderly. Mostly children and the elderly, which are more susceptible to become missing, if you will. Sorry, it's been a long day. And the concern is that you just want to watch out for everybody and make sure they're safe. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, always contact your local law enforcement and take video. It seems that a lot of times these days, video can answer a lot of questions. So utilize what cameras are out there. Your phones, usually most phones have cameras on them. It does not hurt to grab video, especially in public places, or if you're concerned about an individual or a group of people. It's better to contact law enforcement to handle it than step in yourselves, as well as video of folks so that you can have evidence to give to law enforcement when they arrive. Never put yourself in harm's way. It's kind of like the adage in the airplane, make sure that you put safety belts on everybody. If the oxygen masks drop, put one on yourself first and then help people around you, because you cannot help them if you were to pass out. Just an adage I thought of just now, so I thought I would share that. So keep that in mind also. Just looking through the comments right now to see if there's anything there. A variety of comments, I see that. This right here on your screen is the latest updated missing persons poster from the FBI. It is downloadable from the FBI site, so you can just search yourself online. It does give description of Nancy, but it also includes now 3 of the photos about the person who had been at her front entrance. A good, strong possibility that this person is the one that may have allegedly abducted her. We don't know for sure, obviously. We haven't received new information. They were supposed to release a statement last night regarding the home that was, that the road was blocked off around the home that's about 1.9 miles away from Nancy's home. Come to find out, they were detained and released. And again, like I said, they're probably still being monitored, just like many of the other folks of people of interest that they are concerned about. Again, this weekend is not a stop until Tuesday type thing. This is something that's 24/7. This is not a story that stands on its own. It's a representation of so many missing people around the country, around the world. So it brings to light about anyone who's missing, the loved ones that are feeling what Nancy's family is feeling and going through right now. It's not something that should be put to the wayside. So once again, we all have the ability to write our political elective officials, contact them, let them know if you specifically have someone missing from your family, or if you have friends that have missing family members. It does not hurt to reach out to your elected officials. Make the awareness known. That's what they're there for, right? They represent us. I don't want to pull up any more new videos because they're all going to be pretty much the same information, just so you know. And I would hope that you try to enjoy yourself with your family this weekend, or anytime, as much as often as possible. But keep in mind that Nancy Guthrie is still missing, and the investigation continues, as well as if you do come up with any information, like it is this long weekend, there are events going on in Tucson, there could be groups of people. So if you're in the Tucson area and you're attending any events, just be cognizant of who the people around you. And again, don't take anything in your own, make steps on your own. Alert law enforcement. Take video and or pictures. Don't hassle anybody. Don't bring a big attention. Just if you have a concern, we have the 1-800 call FBI. Easy enough to dial and let them know. And again, I'm North Phoenix. You never know in this area or even anywhere else. The digital boards that the FBI has populated with the missing persons poster, even as far as Houston, Texas. So this is information. This is going around the country, and we just want to make sure that she's found unharmed or safe to bring back to her family. So any questions anyone has, because I'm getting close to just ending the stream now, since we don't really have any new information yet. If something comes up, Jonathan will go live, so keep his link available. You can always tune into my channel. If something does come up, I will make sure to stream it. But I didn't want to keep you online just to keep you online. Everything is status quo, shall we say, currently. So we'll keep that fingers crossed. Say your prayers that they all help. It doesn't hurt. I'll be doing mine. Just want to make sure that everybody stays safe. Watch out for your family members and friends. And you're very welcome, Robin. I appreciate that too. Very nice for you to say that. Again, I've been doing the narrative with Jonathan's live streams just to give you some additional information, which I can quickly look up, or up to date. I was going to say, bring you up to date on any new activity. Otherwise, I also wanted to recap every time I stream, so everybody who joins knows what we're talking about, what the topic is, a missing person, elderly missing person. So we want to make sure that everybody's aware of. Let me see if I can throw that up there. There we go. So you see that missing persons. You can see the photos there. May not be very helpful, but they give you an idea of 5'9" to 5'11", approximately. The Ozark bag that they talked about, purchased from Walmart, most likely. We don't know when. Also, the one glove was found. It's probably being analyzed for DNA. And if they do determine the DNA and who it is, if they have in the system, they may track them down, right? They could be in the process of tracking them down. They're not going to share that publicly because that person would be aware that they're looking for them. At this point, we haven't heard anything new, but the 30,000 plus tips and calls that have come in, a lot of efforts going on, right? I did a call center job a long time ago. And when you get flooded with phone calls, you're doing your best to be professional and assist the person on the other call. In this case, you could have frantic people calling. You could have any type of person calling in with a tip, and you have to capture the information. I don't know the process specifically, but I'm sure they have a process. Not every phone call is 10 seconds or could be a minute or two long or longer, right? It all depends on what the type of tip it is. Plus, don't forget all the camera footages that they've received and are looking for and gathering has to be scrubbed, has to be looked at, has to be reviewed, and even sometimes cleaned up to be clearer. So there's a lot of procedures that go into this and processes so that if they do find something that seems to be applicable, they then need to focus on that and do more due diligence to, like, for example, the vehicle. If they have a vehicle of interest, where was it located? Where was it last located? What direction did it move to? Between different parts of the city, what camera picked it up? They can determine stuff like that. So just want to make sure that I brought you up to date. If there's any questions, you can always drop me a comment, or also Jonathan's, which I will put his link back up for everybody so you can see his YouTube channel. You can also search on JLR Investigates and you will see him pop up, and you can join his channel. You can see the past 2 weeks plus previous videos he had done, but his daily coverage of approximately 12 hours a day on site, filming, watching what's going on, gathering information is very helpful if you are monitoring Nancy Guthrie's status and how this case is moving forward. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all for attending. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a safe and wonderful night. Keep the prayers going. That's very helpful. Trust me. And I'm keeping hope beyond hope that she will be found safe and maybe need medical attention. But I also believe that the alleged abductors are smart enough, if she's told them about medication she needs, that they found a way to get some to us to provide to her. That's what I'm focusing on. So thank you, everybody. Take care, Tex. Take care, Snow. Take care, everybody. Yes, Coopers, you're right. All three were detained and released in the morning, so less than 12 hours. But that a lot of activity last night, as you saw through the coverage, might not have panned out. But at the same time, you can see the intention of SWAT and law enforcement to follow up on tips. You never know if the next tip could be the one, right? So again, I'm going to let you go. My outro is going to play, and I thank you so much. We'll see what tomorrow looks like. Have a good night. Be safe.